welcome back to the Sports Show. You know, Baz, the next two guests we've got here, mate, are legends around Adelaide. There are legends around Australia with what they've accomplished in footy.
Yep.
But you know when you get nervous when you get these two guys in, which direction it might go?
Yeah.
So it's a bit like the Muppets, you know, Statler and Waldorf. You know, those
Statler
two-
and Waldorf.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit.
mountain.
Anyway, talking about the great Timmy Ginever, Kimmy Koster are in the building. Boys, how are we?
Oh, that's coming from you two.
Yeah.
Are you old enough to watch the Muppets? I don't even know what the Muppets were. What are you?
Yeah, please. Oh, please.
Laurel and Hardy.
Hey, let's start with the showdown, boys. Obviously, it was on last weekend. Crows down by 49 points. And it seems to be cyclable, though. You know, I mean, it's 25-24 if you go to showdown 49. What do you take away from the game? Timmy, your team wins. What do you take away?
Yeah, look, of all the showdowns, I thought it was probably the most uninspiring as far as a contest went. And that was part conditions, I think. But it never felt like Port were running away with it. It always felt like it was a bit of a tussle. And Port just got an incremental margin as it went along. In the end, it was 49 points. But it just didn't feel that way. So it was a tough contest, especially early. I thought Adelaide had a real dip, but it's sort of it ended up being a game that you go, well, we'll take the points, but you probably won't watch that one again.
Yeah.
Kimmy, your take?
Yeah, I actually wasn't there live. I watched on TV, and the first half I thought was good from a spectacle on TV. It was just hard and tough, but you could always tell that Port were probably going to run away with it at some stage, just get the better of it. Probably purely on talent-wise as well. They're just a bit better, or probably a lot better than Adelaide at the moment. So, but half-time, I thought it was a good spectacle.
I felt the same way, Tim. I felt like it was. I thought Port were in control, but it wasn't put away. It wasn't. It was one of those games, but you never felt. It's the most comfortable I've ever felt at a showdown. Now I think that tells you that.
Yep.
That maybe the game looked like it was okay, but I don't think Port were in really any danger of getting done. No. Put it this way, at one stage there, they were only about, Crows only needed 3 goals to catch up, but they'd only kicked 1.
Yeah.
And it was halfway through so where are they going to come from? That's all you had to keep thinking,
I think to Kim's point, it always felt like Port were in control, but there was never that string of 4 or 5 in a row that you went, and then all the momentum came with it. It never felt like that because it was more dogged to get those goals along. So, and part of that was the conditions. But look, I think if you looked at both sides, Port at the moment are trying to manage without a couple of really good players, Butters and Dersma especially. I'd like to see Jones back in the lineup.
Yep.
You know, they're guys that you go, they're quality, and they're just going to have to manage that. Scott Lycett's going to have a rest, so they're going to have to manage that over the next few weeks against some good opposition. Adelaide, on the other hand, for me, and I'll get Kim to talk to it, I think if you go back before round 1, they're ahead of expectations. I reckon if they were aiming for 6 or 7 wins this year, I reckon people would be going, oh, gee, that's pretty good year on year. Yeah. They're a bit ahead of their spot, in my opinion.
They've got a tough draw coming up. They do. They haven't had a bad run, but they've got a tough draw coming up, and they also are going to have to replace some players. So I don't know whether their depth is that good. Having a look at the SANFL game beforehand, I'm not sure whether they can cover the guys that. Although their number 1 pick didn't play all that badly, I thought in the.
Chase Jones came along, and
I thought he played.
Billy Frampton's put his hand up too.
Hey, Kim, let me ask you this. On the back of what we're discussing here right now, though, if you had gone to the game, you said at the end of quarter time, they're down by 2 goals. But then it's another 2 goals in the second quarter. And there's 2 goals in the third and 2 in the fourth. So there's your 8. There's your 8 goals, and you go, that's 48 points. So it's a 49-point loss. So you go, it's not that bad. So there's some good signs coming.
I don't think it was actually a bad loss. Every loss is a bad loss. But I would have expected Port to win by 80 plus.
Most were picking 66 points plus, weren't they?
Yeah. Like Adelaide, if someone said to me at the start of the year, Adelaide are going to be 3 wins at this time of year, I'd take it. They probably should have been 4, should have beaten Hawthorn, but I'd take it because they have super exceeded, I think, where everyone thought they're at. Don't know if that's purely because the whole talent of AFL at the moment isn't probably great and different in all sides, but they are now coming into a good part of the year, tough group of games they're going to have to play against some really good sides.
I thought, I'm not sure I agree. When I spoke with Ollie Wines after the game, he said something which I think is very relevant, that the 8-goal win was a really good win given the conditions. Now, That sort of shocked me a little bit because I thought, what are you talking about conditions? It wasn't that bad in Suite 1.
No, I'm with you.
I'm with the classic. A few problems with the air conditioning. One of the wines wasn't quite right. Yeah, no.
Well, you're sitting there and you see a guy drop a mark. You go, come on, mate, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You don't think about the conditions. The conditions were, as Ollie said, it was really, really wet underfoot, but then you got the dew on top of it.
Yeah.
So the 8-goal win really could have been a 10 or 12.
The ball handling was definitely affected
Well, I thought
by it,
Port
no
were
doubt.
better at their skill execution was better than Adelaide. That was simple, but the conditions shocked me a little bit when Ollie talked about it because you don't really notice it. You may not have noticed so much, Kim, watching on TV.
Yeah, no, you don't get the same aspect watching at home versus being there live. You just don't ever get that.
Hey, you guys were both terrific with your ball skills. There's a lot of talk about the yellow footy being slipperier than the red footy. Can you buy into that in any way? Or do they need to do something for night footy? Because the players have talked about the dew now getting on the footy, and I don't know. I'm kind of looking at it, and I guess let's talk about Charlie Dixon and Tex Walker, two key players that seem to fumble a bit at different times. Yet they've both shown in other games that they've got vice-like hands. So is there something in that?
Look, the football originally, and I'm going right back to sort of your
The 20s.
With the rubber footy, the plastic one, where you kick across the road.
Do you remember the first yellow ones that came out were really shiny?
Yeah.
A really shiny finish. Now, they were a disaster. That was cake of soap stuff. But after that, they developed a yellow leather.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. It became then just like a Sharon
as any other. Okay.
during the day. So it really, it's apples for apples, it's okay. I think we got to accept that, you're going to get dewy games, you're going to get wet games. I always think it's like how you handle the wet ball and using flat hands and things like that for the two grab type scenario when it's really wet. But I actually thought that the ball handling, considering that it was so damp, because I was there and it felt like that I didn't, at times, I know there were some mistakes, but I thought they actually didn't do too bad.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Charlie Dixon. They're talking Port Adelaide up as the team that can win it this year. Charlie's got to be pivotal in that. And I'll come back to you. I know you were laughing because I want to get to you on Tex Walker. So, is he consistent enough? Because when he's on, everyone gets around him and he's the barometer for them, isn't he?
Yep.
And then when he's down...
I think it's, you know what I think it is for both those players you mentioned? It's the expectation
It's a key role.
that they're going to kick 8 goals.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
No.
And the way footy is played these days, you've got...
unfair expectation on them?
I think it's unfair expectations on all of the key forwards these days. Is they're not... You're not getting your Dunstall, Ablett, Lockett type scenario anymore. It's just the game doesn't allow that anymore. So what they've got to do is actually sometimes if you're not having your day, you just compete, but make sure other guys are getting goals.
Yeah.
So do your role to make sure they're getting other goals because that's today's game is that it can't come from one bloke anymore.
And he's only had I think he's only had the one day off. Personally, I think he's only had Brisbane off. Even where he's got games where he's only kicking 1 goal and 2 goals, he is responsible for more like 4 or 5.
But I'm saying I don't know that he had the Brisbane game off. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it was as bad as everybody says it was. I think he did some of the things that Timmy's talking about. I just think there's so much focus on him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't boot 4 or 5, he's had an off game.
I think it's like Tex. If you take him out of the lineup,
yes.
What then happens? And I'm telling you, the kids who are trying to make their way in AFL all of a sudden get the attention. We don't want that. Yeah. We actually want those kids developing with the third, maybe fourth defender. So you've got to keep them in for the structure alone, let alone what they can give.
Yeah. Tex?
I think, Tex right now is probably better than Charlie, I reckon, on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
But he's now sort of started to come back the last couple of weeks. Says he's got a bit of a calf injury. Is that something that he's playing with? I don't know. And personally, if you can't play with an injury, don't play. I believe that Adelaide have got enough there to bring in for Tex if he's out. But he's done way better than I thought this year. I'm a massive Tex fan. And this year I did write him off because obviously how he went last year. But
you're a good fan.
Yeah, I just reckon he's like a genuine,
loyal fan.
Well, I'm a very loyal fan, but I like Tex. He's a great bloke and he's a genuine person. And I think he was harshly dealt for a long time. They're always saying how bad he is and what he doesn't do, but he's always taking 2 defenders normally.
Yeah.
And I reckon he's done really well on that. But last year wasn't great. This year been awesome. Last few weeks, whether it's coming that time of year, calf, I don't know, he's dropped off a little bit.
Ever since he limped off there,
Yep, he's dropped
which was
away.
a few weeks ago, he hasn't had a kick. And Adelaide probably should have done the right thing and just said, mate, have a sit down for a week or...
We've got to get to a break. We need to come back out of the break. I want to talk to these boys about the prison bars in the change room after the game and all that kind of gear. So stay with us. We'll get to them after the break.